Hey guys, what is up? It is Monday, February 10th here in Portland, Oregon. So much going on in the world of rugby. I needed to jump in, do a rugby recap. We're going to talk about Six Nations Round 2. What does it mean for the competition going forward? And I'm going to answer a question that popped into my DMs, appeared on my YouTube comment section. Is Antoine Dupont overrated? We're going to delve into that. We're going to talk about Joe Schmidt finishing up with the Wallabies. Probably news that Australians do not want to hear. Who's going to step into the breach? And could this have been avoided? Should the Australian Rugby Union have picked someone that they knew would be good for 4 years? What do we think about Schmidt's decision? What does it reveal about his motives and his future? We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to finish with a fun one, which is breaking down the Super Bowl in rugby terms. So let's get to it, guys. Let's delve into the Six Nations Round 2. I've seen all the games. Let's start off with Wales versus Italy. Yes, everyone's got their eyes fixed on the Week 4 fixture. Ireland versus France. That seemingly is the battle for number 1. Although England may have something to say about that. We'll get to that in a minute. But on the weekend, we had the battle for the wooden spoon. As much as people want to win the competition, they really don't want to get the wooden spoon. Now, Wales is at an all-time low. They have lost 13 on the trot. Unlucky 13. Never seen anything like this before. They're sticking with Warren Gatland. They don't know what else to do. Their backs are in a corner. If they were going to win a game in the competition, they targeted this game in Italy. This meant a lot to the players. There was a comment made during the week that this was the most important game for Wales in 20 years. I wouldn't quite go that far. There have been some big World Cup games they've been involved with. There have been some big Six Nations fixtures. But I kind of like the comment because even if it's inaccurate, it speaks to the longing of these players to get back into the W column. They just need a win. They were winless last year. They'd give anything to win. What didn't happen in a very rain-swept but well-attended game in Italy, and to be honest with you, it was never really in doubt. Here's why. Wales don't really have a good set piece. What they do have is some exciting young backs. Players who can open the game up. You know, Wales is really at their best when the game becomes anarchic. They pushed England last year because the game got scrappy. It got loose. That suits Wales. They're good at counterattack. They're good at playing improvisational, unstructured rugby. They're exciting. And that works against some teams. It actually doesn't work well against Italy for one important reason. Italy is the world's most improved team at the breakdown. These guys are like Ferraris getting around the field. Their loose forwards are so fast. Their backs are not afraid to hit the rucks. So Wales broke the line quite a few times. Players would get isolated. The ball would get turned over, either then and there or a couple of phases down the line as the Welsh scrambled to get back into some kind of attacking shape. You can get away with getting isolated against some teams, not Italy. They hit the breakdown with a venom, and that's why they're so improved in recent years. Their scrum has always been pretty good. Decent set piece. Now they got that breakdown speed, that lightning fast ruck ball, and they've got the backs like Ioane to get the job done, get across the line. So yeah, Wales did score some points in garbage time. I believe the final score was 22-15. A little bit flattering. Italy had this one in the bag. They're not going to get the wooden spoon this year. Can Wales still get a scalp? I don't think so. I think they're going to go through this tournament losing every single fixture, and I don't know what's next for them. They're sticking with Gatland. They're sticking with these young players. Those poor fans of the Red Dragon are just going to have to keep suffering through this rebuilding phase that seems to be taking forever. Let's talk about Ireland versus Scotland. Scotland try. They are brave. They deserve that moniker of bravery. But they're always undermanned. And being plucky and audacious only gets you so far when you can't really compete. in general play. Yeah, their set piece is always decent. It's always there or thereabouts. And there's always some amazing mercurial player, but there's not enough of them. This Irish team is stacked. You go backline on backline, Ireland just have too much talent. And they have a really good number 10 running the show. Prendergast may just have unseated Jack Crowley as the preferred number 10. You look at some of his long cutout passes. Unbelievable vision. I mean, if you're an Irish fan, you've got to be stoked that you have these two 5'8s dueling it out for the number 1 spot. The post-Sexton era is going pretty well in terms of 5'8s. So Ireland is looking really good. They got an 18-32 win over at Murrayfield. Pretty impressive. So is Ireland unbeatable now? I mean, we saw France go down on the weekend. Is this their title to lose? Are they going to three-peat, unlike the Kansas City Chiefs? Guys, let's not get ahead of ourselves. France had a bad day at the office. They went down to England. I think France still might win that fixture against Ireland. Here's the thing, even though the French have become much more consistent, much more professional, they're still an emotional team. When they have an off day, it tends to be a really off day. And they had a bad day at Twickenham. Went to sleep in the last 10 minutes, let England finish on top of them. But you just know that these French players, Dupont, Intermac, I mean, Jalabert, whoever's starting at 10, Ramos at fullback, that pack, they're not going to lay down. I predict a pretty sharp riposte from the French. They're not they're not getting that silver medal just yet. We got to see that week 4 fixture. I might actually still lean towards France. I think there's going to be a snapback. So the idea that Ireland is now unassailably in the lead, unbeatable, I say hold your horses, even though I'm very impressed with what the Irish are doing this year. Let's not get too excited, if you're an Irish man or woman, until you've played France in week 4. And I predict it's going to be a very different France to the one that showed up on the weekend. Let's touch on that quickly. France were beaten 26-25 at Twickenham. I want to thank you guys who tuned into my live stream. I was sick as a dog. I'm feeling much better now, as you can probably hear in my voice. For those of you who persevered with me, coughing my way through coverage, you are one of the real ones, and I appreciate that. If you want to go into the channel, hear a more detailed recap of that game, you'll find it under my lives. But suffice to say, France went to sleep in the last 10 minutes. England hung in the game. They dominated possession, about 60%. They stayed in touch. When France clicked, they were brilliant. They were at a different level to the English. But England hung in there with aggressive D, some very astute kicking, and a nicely rebalanced backline. You had a new number 10, Finn Smith. You had Marcus Smith going to 15. A little bit of the All Blacks play. Richie Mo'unga at 10, Beauden Barrett at 15, putting a first 5 at fullback. Gives you good options for counter-attack, lets you set up your outside backs pretty nicely from the back. It worked well. So England, if they can beat Scotland this weekend, that's going to be a big game because they need to beat Scotland. They're really going to be hanging in there. They could yet be the dark horse in this tournament. I'm stoked that England did get the win. I think they deserved it. And I'm actually pretty surprised if you look at the rugby sphere online, a lot of people were happy England got the win. Now, normally England is public enemy number 1, but let's keep it real, guys. Whether you cheer for the Springboks, the All Blacks, the French, whoever, let's keep it real. England have had some brutal losses in the past 18 months. I mean, they were a point off making a Rugby World Cup final. They almost beat the All Blacks 3 times. They got pipped by Australia. I mean, man, they have just had some tight losses. Most of their losses are in that 1 point to 7 point margin. That's what we call a margin of error in rugby union. That means you're pretty damn close to winning. So they deserved a big scalp. I'm pleased to see it. I'd love to see them kick on. I think they've found something with this loose forward combo that they have. One Curry starting, one Curry on the bench. Got those twin brothers, Ben and Tom. Earl's great. Keep him in there. Chandler Cunningham South coming off the bench, giving some impact. I think that's good. England needs that impact in the final quarter. Think they're heading in the right direction. Finally. But let's see what happens. It could be a Jekyll and Hyde situation. Either way, they beat France, and Antoine Dupont had a very quiet night, which leads to the next discussion point. Is Dupont overrated? I know that's sacrilege to even ask the question, but this question was asked of me. I saw it in the comments. Is Dupont overrated? His service looked sluggish. Well, firstly, to answer if someone's overrated, we have to determine how are they rated. Some people think he is the GOAT, the greatest rugby player of all time. I'm not one of them. That would be this guy here, Richie McCaw, for me. Now, admittedly, the answer might have a lot to do with whether you were born in Paris or Wellington, but here is what I felt in the late 2000s when I would have said Dan Carter or Richie are the GOAT. Well, people said to me, yeah, but where's the Rugby World Cup medal? And I took it on the chin. I said, okay, you're right. Until they have that gold medal, it's hard to call someone the GOAT. Well, Dan and Richie got 2 medals, okay? So they're in that conversation now. Dupont is in the conversation, but for me, he needs to lift that Webb Ellis trophy to cement it, put it beyond doubt. Now, is he the greatest halfback of all time? That's something I'm much more open to. I mean, you have people like George Gregan, who had unbelievable vision, unbelievable tenacity. You have Aaron Smith from New Zealand. He's got to be in the conversation of greatest halfbacks of all time. There's a few, but if you want to say Dupont is the best, I can see that. And the fact that he went and won a gold medal playing sevens is mind-blowing. Here's what I think happened. He had a bad day at the office. And I've seen all-time greats have a bad day at the office. Dan Carter, Johnny Wilkinson, anyone can get flustered. Just look at yesterday's Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes, a guy who walks on water. A guy who's not even 30, but already a deity in the NFL. He looked like hot garbage yesterday. And we're going to talk about that in a second. He was beaten because the pack in front of him, the offensive line in the NFL, didn't protect him. And Antoine Dupont wasn't as well protected as usual. I don't think you can look at that forward pack on the weekend and say that that was a vintage French forward pack performance. Lineout was stable, good around the field, but also a few sloppy mistakes. And in general, the physicality, the crunch wasn't really there in the last 10 minutes, and they leaked some pretty soft tries. England did brilliantly to hang in there and strike when the opportunity appeared. Brilliantly. Full credit to them. But we're going to keep watching this tournament, and we're going to find out if England won that game or France beat themselves. Dupont is amazing. He is fairly rated as the best in the world currently. He is fairly rated as maybe the best halfback of all time. Is he the GOAT rugby player of all time? Such a subjective question anyway. Kind of a silly question. Difficult to compare positions. How do you compare a halfback to a number 7? How do you compare a 15 to a 1? You can't. Dupont had a bad day at the office, and frankly, it wasn't even that bad. In fact, I saw some signs in his play of evolution. The way that he got that ball away in the second half as he went into a thicket of defenders, that shows me that his time in sevens has translated across to the 15-a-side version of the game, because he just saw space that a lot of people wouldn't, and he had a ballsiness to get that ball away when the most sensible option might have been to kick and get out of trouble. The way he's taking the ball to the line, seeing space, and getting these incredible passes out. Chef kiss, Dupont. Not only is he not overrated, I'm seeing signs that his game's getting better and better. And I hope that he comes down to New Zealand. I really do. We want to play the best. The All Blacks are playing the French 3 times. You'd love to have a first-string French team out there. We want to be tested against the best. We haven't beaten them in the last 3 attempts. So I'm hoping that they don't send a second-string French squad out there. I think that'd be disappointing for everyone, for the French fans, for the Kiwi fans. But those are going to be big. Maybe not as big as the British and Irish Lions going down to Australia. Joe Schmidt is going to be coaching them. It's going to be one of his last assignments, because we just found out last week that Joe Schmidt is leaving the Wallabies as head coach. He's going to coach him through the Rugby Championship, and then he's done. So Aussies are feeling pretty upset about this. He's a great coach. Some people feel a little bit betrayed. If you care to read the comment section on the internet, which is usually a pretty bad idea, but did this guy ever have serious intentions of seeing the team through to the World Cup? The Wallabies need commitment. They can't just have these mercenaries like Eddie Jones coming in. Well, let's hold our horses here. Schmidt's an interesting character. Look, he's the guy that turned Ireland around. I was there that day in Chicago, that bleak day from a New Zealand perspective, when the All Blacks lost to Ireland for the first time in 100 years, and he masterminded that. He couldn't get the Irish a quarterfinal Rugby World Cup win, but he did every damn other thing you could do, and he had the wood on the All Blacks for years. I'm the first to admit that. And so it was a fait accompli that he would coach the All Blacks. The guy's a Kiwi. I mean, that's every Kiwi coach's dream. And when the All Blacks were struggling through the Ian Foster era, you kind of felt like maybe the brass were lining that up. Can we get Scott Robertson in? Can we get Joe Schmidt in? Can we get rid of Foster? Schmidt never seemed interested. He didn't want to know about it. He was not interested in the head coach position. Now, they brought him in as an assistant coach, and that was a hugely instrumental factor in the All Blacks making the Rugby World Cup final in 2023. But he just didn't seem to want that head job. So it was quite shocking when he accepted the job with the Wallabies. But guys, there's a very simple reality to all this. Joe Schmidt's a good man. He's not a mercenary. I think he's given it his all that he can to Australia. The truth is, he has a son back in New Zealand who has special needs and needs extra care. And that's the reason that he doesn't want to coach all the way through this Rugby World Cup cycle. So if you're telling me that this guy has a lot of money on the table and the opportunity, even if it's remote, to coach the home team to a World Cup win in 2027, because that tournament is in Australia, Wallabies are the home team, he's got that opportunity, every coach's dream role. Take the home team all the way, win a Webb Ellis Trophy. If he's saying, you know what, that's all great, but my family's more important, then I have nothing but respect for Schmidt. I wish him the absolute best. I think that's a guy who has his priorities in order. So I'm hoping that he gives it his all and that the Wallabies are competitive against the Lions. Yeah, I know as a Kiwi it's weird to ever root for Australia, but I didn't love them not getting out of the pool in the last World Cup. That's not the Aussie standard historically. Listen, I'm an All Black fan. I love jeering the Wallabies. But they should be in the pointy end of Rugby World Cup tournaments. They shouldn't be going out in the pool. That's not right. That's where I draw the line, even as an All Black fan. You know, I didn't get pleasure from that. Now, losing in a quarterfinal, yeah, I'd get some pleasure from that. But going out in the pool, I don't like that. And I don't like it from a selfish perspective either, as a New Zealand fan, because, hey, these are the players that we're taking on in Super Rugby for half the year. These are the guys that we play 2 or 3 times in Bledisloe Cup fixtures. Iron sharpens iron. Of course, I'm always going to go for the All Blacks, but playing a strong Australian team, that's better for New Zealand rugby. So who's next in line? Look, there's been lots of names thrown out there. Phil Ward, the CEO, ultimately is going to guide this process. I'll just say that I like the idea of Stephen Larkham being involved. I mean, he was an amazing player on the field, incredible vision. I think he's showed signs that he has vision off the field. He's a good coach. Maybe they need an Aussie. Now, normally I'm a globalist. I just think take whoever is the best coach. If it's a Welshman, great. If it's a Kiwi, great. But, you know, the Wallabies haven't had much luck with a lot of different New Zealand coaches now. I'm not saying these guys don't give their all, but maybe there's just this extra 5%. And it's emotion, and it's spiritual, and it's holy crap, I'm the All Blacks coach. Maybe there's just a little bit more that would be wrung out of them if they were coaching the All Blacks. Just a few extra percentage points. They're professionals. It's unconscious. I'm not saying that they're not giving their best intentionally, but maybe there's just an X factor of emotion that's missing. So maybe bringing an Aussie in could be a good idea. I'm going to throw Stephen Larkham's name out there. Let me know in the comments who you think could be next. All right, guys, let's finish up with the Super Bowl. It's now whenever it happened yesterday. I'm going to put it in rugby terms. So even if you have no interest in football, stick around through this. I'm going to make this very easy to understand. And then, hey, worst case scenario, you learned a little bit about American football. American football is remarkably similar to rugby union in a couple of areas. Firstly, it's all about the quarterback. Now, you guys know who the quarterback is. He's the guy throwing the ball. Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, throwing the ball to wide receivers, who are kind of like wingers, so that they can score a touchdown, which is basically a try. Get the ball over the line. Get the ball over the try line. Get the ball into the end zone. That is how you score points. Exactly the same in both sports. So the quarterback is the playmaker. He's the first 5/8. All right? And you had one of the greatest first 5/8 or quarterbacks ever playing yesterday, Patrick Mahomes for the Chiefs, going for his 3rd Super Bowl in a row. People kind of thought it was inevitable, a fairy tale that had to play out because it was just fated. And Mahomes is clutch. Well, just like in rugby, there's only so much magic you can produce if you're playing behind a beaten pack. When we talk about the set piece in rugby, what are we talking about? We're talking about the big boys, the forwards, numbers 1 through 8. They scrum. They have lineouts. This is the set piece. Well, American football has a set piece too. It's called the line of scrimmage. There's a defensive line. There's an offensive line. They clash. They scrum. They ruck. They go head to head. And the O-line, the offensive line, is trying to protect the quarterback so that he has time to make the plays. Now, we've all seen games of rugby where a great number 10 looks absolutely pedestrian because the scrum in front of him is going backwards. If your pack is beaten, if you're getting sloppy ball, if you don't have much time because the defense is just rushing at you, you're screwed. I remember the great Dan Carter looking very mediocre in Cape Town because Skulk Burger was stalking him all day and the All Blacks pack was beaten and he had no time and space. I don't care how good you are. When you have no time and space, when you're getting hit from all angles, you're human. There's a great saying in boxing and martial arts. Every fighter has a plan till they get punched in the face. The Chiefs got punched in the face by the Philadelphia Eagles. The Chiefs' offensive line cracked. It was a makeshift offensive line. They were missing some people. They patched it together. Well, the dam broke. And against the biggest defensive line in Super Bowl history, they choked, they fell apart, and their boy Mahomes could do nothing. The worst game I've ever seen him play. Philadelphia Eagles were all over the top of him. And it started up front just like it does in rugby. So there's your American football lesson. Whoever dominates that line of scrimmage usually wins the game. Just like in rugby, whoever wins the set piece battle, whoever wins the battle of the breakdown, usually they're on the winning team. So congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. Guys, I appreciate having you here. I'll be back for another one real soon. Please like and subscribe so I can do more of these rugby recaps. I am loving it. And I'll catch you for another one real soon. Take it easy. Bye for now.